please speak Spanish.
Panel in English.
We need to follow the rules of this meeting. My name is Sergio Alcocer. I'm the president of the Mexican Council on Foreign Relations, and it's my distinct pleasure for me to be here and to thank the Antalya Diplomacy Forum for inviting COMEXI to participate in this very interesting meeting. And in this occasion, we have the privilege of having three very distinguished officials from three countries in Latin America. And let me introduce them. Mr. Minister of Foreign Affairs from the Republic of Panama, Janaina Tewani. Thank you very much for being here. Mónica Bolaños, and she is the Vice Minister for Foreign Affairs from the Republic of Guatemala. And Francisco José Coy, who is the Vice Minister of the Republic of Colombia. And thank you very much, Vice Minister, for being here. This panel leads with Latin America and the Caribbean in transformation. And let me just read a little bit of an introduction of the topic. Latin America and the Caribbean region is made of independent nations totaling over 650 million inhabitants. Latin America and the Caribbean is characterized by its cultural, linguistic, and ethnic diversity, as well by distinctly different regimes, political processes, and economic and social policies. Besides the different approaches in the region to international and global relations, in recent times, the divergence in political regimes is apparent. From Barbados, who recently turned into a parliamentary republic, to presidential systems. Latin America and the Caribbean is, if anything, quite heterogeneous. Recent changes are imposing new challenges to its young liberal and electoral democracies. Countries like Mexico, Brazil, Chile, and Haiti exhibit some of the major social and economical challenges, along with vibrant and, in some cases, very complex political systems. Latin America is a region of opportunities, and it's a region of certain stability compared to other areas. So what we're going to be talking here is what are those challenges and opportunities that Latin America face. And in the case of Turkey, with the relation with Latin America and the Caribbean, Turkey has increased the footprint in number of embassies, in number of flights between Turkish Airlines and our countries and our cities. We see a very vibrant trade community within Latin America, in Mercosur, in the southern part of the continent, or between several countries with the Alianza del Pacífico. So there are plenty of opportunities and plenty of challenges. And our experts here will talk to you what are those and what can we do together in order to reduce those inequalities, those challenges. So, Mr. Can you tell us what are, in your opinion, those challenges, those opportunities that we have in Latin America?
Thank you very much, and I'm so happy to be here in Antalya, sharing this panel with two dear countries, Guatemala from Central America and Colombia. Historically, we were part of the Great Colombia, so Colombia and Guatemala, we have strong ties. For me, I would like to not just talk on behalf of Panama or as a Minister of Foreign Affairs of Panama. For me, it's about the new generation that is leading and is going to be leading in the country. There are challenges, yes, many. Probably Latin America faces the main challenge, which is inequality, and many other challenges related to global geopolitics. But there are some regional challenges that are specific to our continent. And I will link this to the new generation. First of all, we are a very rich continent, vast, rich in resources. However, we are the most unequal. And we are also, we suffer from other consequences of that inequality. But there are challenges that are specific to our continent. For instance, the way that indigenous population should be included in the development of the continent, because they are part of it. Probably migration challenges that we share with Guatemala and Colombia, and other challenges related to global dynamics, and such as probably the climate change. Now, there are opportunities, definitely. For instance, you have mentioned a few alliances, but I would like to mention one that is very important, for instance, to Panama, which is the ADD, Alliance for Development in Democracy. Not ADD as attentional deficit disorder, no. It's the ADD for Alliance for Development in Democracy. And Panama, Costa Rica, and Dominican Republic initially, and then Ecuador joined it. There we see how 4 countries get together to cherish values and to show the world that democracy is the best, probably the best tool for development, because this is what has really worked to us. And I'll have one last thing that maybe, because I don't have the timing here, so I don't want to take the time of my colleagues. I have a lot of hopes, and I put all in the new generation too, because Latin America is not only crossing through transformations inside that are related to external dynamics, but also transformations that are related to the generation that is coming. And these in here, I want to give a few examples. We have a few millennial presidents ruling currently. And we have seen how the way they see the world is completely and directly linked to their experience and their view and their concept of the geopolitical events that were happening when they were reaching the majority of age. And I will give you 2 examples. We have Salvador, a very different and very completely different vision from what we have seen throughout last decades, of one pendulum to the other, from the left wing that comes from the post-Cold War, and then the neoliberals that are coming with a different concept. We have a different leadership that looks more into the pragmatism and looks more into its own reality and its own books and its own experience. We also have the example of, and please keep in mind that Salvador, for instance, the war, I believe, ended in 1992. So there was actually a movement, a shift from the moment Salvador, let's say, acquired its peace after the Central American, the violence that was facing Central America, and the generation that became, let's say, took the majority and became legally, adult after that. I want to give the example of President Boric from Chile. I believe he's also a millennial. And if you see also the shift that happened in Chile after 1989, and that generation that came after that, you see there's a new paradigm, we call it. And you see also what is happening in Panama after 1989, that the US invade Panama, and then the new democratic government came, and you see how new leadership is coming with a different view, and how this new leadership is thinking differently from what we have seen throughout decades. So I have my hopes, I have put all my hopes in the new dynamics that will come. And with this I will close, because I think she can develop more than me. We have a newcomer, outsider coming from Guatemala also. A president that probably is not a traditional president, and you see maybe probably the same happening in Ecuador, and you see very common pragmatic visions. So yes, there is a change. Latin America is changing, and there is strong and huge opportunity for us to see it, and including the new generations is very important and crucial for the decisions that governments are taking. And with this, I will end.
Thank you very much. Many years ago, I remember listening to President Arias. He was no longer president at the time, And of course, you know that he was Nobel Prize, he's still Nobel Prize for Peace. But he was mentioning that perhaps one of the things that we needed to learn in Latin America was to get away from communism and socialism and capitalism and neoliberalism, and perhaps embracing pragmatism. And this is probably the new approach in Latin American politics by millennials and by not so millennials, like my own president, who probably is millennial before Christ, but not this recent time. But anyway, you were saying that democracy is the best tool for development. And in this case, Guatemala had just had a crisis in terms of democracy. And we were very aware, we were a cherished country to Mexico, of course, because neighbors. So can you tell us where we are in democracy and how you see that, and of course what you want to say, Vice Minister Bolaños, please.
Thank you very much. And first of all, I would like to thank the government of Turkey for the invitation to all of us to participate in this important forum and also be part of this important panel along with my distinguished colleagues, Minister and Vice Minister of Panama and Colombia. And as the Minister said, we had it's a coincidence that we have very good relations and historical ties. And so it's an honor for me to be here part of this. And yes, regarding democracy, my country, as all of you have been seeing the news, have been in the process of defending that democracy that was judicially persecuted after the first round of elections in Guatemala last year, in August last year. And it was very, very, the international community we were very impressed of the international community support during this very difficult process. The world witnessed the struggle that the people of Guatemala waged in defense of democracy and asserting the right to vote and elect authorities in the transparent elections that were carried out by the electoral tribunal. As mentioned by the now President of Guatemala, Dr. Bernardo Arevalo, at the inauguration ceremony, he said, and I wanted to quote this because I think it's very important, "We are emerging from a political crisis that offers us the opportunity to build and strengthen a robust and healthy democratic institutions on the ruins of this wall of corruption that we are beginning to tear down one by one, brick by brick." And I think this is a very strong statement because it was very difficult the road for the president to take office, and at least there's still very difficult. We are facing a lot of challenges by the powers that still wanted to conserve this power, and we are every day trying to learn of that experience in order to strengthen our institutions. And right now, the government of Guatemala is emphatic in pointing out that there is no democracy without social justice, and social justice cannot prevail without democracy. For our country, all this is achieved from the perspective of respect, of full respect of human rights, of course, and seeking the integral development of the people. The new administration is committed to positioning Guatemala as a responsible, influential, and participatory actor in a global political community that addresses common challenges from our perspective. And again, I cannot be more clear to thank all the countries that were supporting us in this very strong process, very difficult process, I'm sorry, and that is, of course, as the panel title addresses, a transformation of the country. We saw a transformation, and I think that was achieved because also the support of the people. The people was on the streets, but in a peaceful manner, and it was requesting to the decisions to be respected, and I think that's a really important message to the rest of the countries that are facing some problems and are facing some problems of democracy, and I think this is very important to highlight. Of course, this issue is very important for us, and also because we are facing a lot of challenges, violence, unemployment, poverty, inequality, and the impact of natural disasters at the same time. And all of these problems also bring a common additional impact, that is migration, as the minister very well pointed out. That's why we think that the current economic and social challenges in Latin America and the Caribbean have highlighted these problems and the urgent need to find new drivers of economic growth, and also to call for more investment in our country that, as the minister said, is very rich in natural resources. And so that's why we have to take that opportunity and to have all this dialogue. I think that's why the political dialogue is needed for the stability and bilateral and regional and sub-regional cooperation is crucial. And this forum will provide this exchange of information, this dialogue that must continue in our very changing landscape, as we were discussing. I think it's very important, it's very timely, and we are here to listen and to learn, and also to share our experiences. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Vice Minister Coy, just a few hours ago, President Erdogan was recalling us that diplomacy has to adapt, and he was sort of reflecting on what would be the role of diplomacy in a time of crisis. From the Colombian perspective, what is needed in Latin America in terms of diplomacy to overcome so many of these challenges that we face together? We were talking before this panel about the corruption taking part of politics, but also now the transnational crime organizations participating very openly in elections, for example. And of course, if we want to defend democracy, we need to defend elections first of all. And what is the role? What can we do together? And what's your opinion into this?
Thank you very much, Sergio. And I have to be, first of all, I'm very glad to be here. We've been trying to participate in this forum for 3 years in a row. Finally, we succeed being here. I'm very honored to be here, accompanied by the Foreign Minister of Panama and my colleague from Guatemala. Well, there is a very difficult world out there. We're in a transition to a new world order. We don't know yet what this new order is going to be like. We are facing 2 major wars that probably we didn't imagine some years ago. That's the moment we need to answer. What can we do to have a more peaceful world? Diplomacy has to be a tool to confront those wars, all these areas of conflict around the world. We have to find a way to find solutions, because the new world that we know for sure is we're building a global community. We are fixing the roles of a new community. The question for Latin America, how we're going to participate in the building of the new world order, that we can, or can we offer for that? Well, in our region, we have several challenges. One of them, my colleague has said it before, has to do with democracy, the challenges internally. I think that after the pandemic, there was a lot of changes in our societies. I've been watching elections in the region, and after pandemic, we saw a lot of social mobilization, break up the party system in all our countries, and then in some ways we saw some sort of surprising results in the elections, because probably people are not believing in the state and the democracy institutions as before. So we have a big challenge there, how we rebuild democracy to be able to respond to the people's needs. Without a doubt, equality, as my colleagues mentioned before, is probably for Latin America, the more unequal region in the world, is one big challenge. And the other one you mentioned before, the relation between corruption and organized crime, the influence of organized crime on politics. We probably saw before that there was a lot of corruption around political parties, but now what we're seeing is a lot of political activists for the criminal organizations themselves. They're participating openly in politics and putting candidates, disqualifying some of them. So those are big challenges we have to face. So altogether, we need to see in what way we can work together to address those challenges. Criminal organizations in one of the country are related to those same criminal organizations in the other country. They're all working on networks. They're working together. So we as a state, we have to work together to confront them. We cannot, there's no one single problem in political, in our political process that has not an international component. So we need to work together. Cooperation is not an option, it's a duty. We have to work together. In all those fronts, you have to sit down and work out a way to address those challenges, and probably we need to coordinate, even in problems like the one Foreign Minister of Panama mentioned in migration. The answer in one country probably only leads to problem in another country. We don't act together, we're going to be lost. So basically, those are some big lines I can offer to your question.
Thank you very much, Francisco Jose. When you were mentioning that we need to work together, and for many years, decades, centuries, in Latin America, we have been talking about integration. And then, so we started from Simón Bolívar, and then recently we have two institutions, one that is a much broader and well-established institution, the Organization of American States, that has a building, has a website, has statues, and it works, with problems and issues. And then we developed a new mechanism, it's called CELAC, that doesn't have a website, doesn't have an statues, doesn't have a building, but we have it. And they are meeting today. And then we have other organizations, and Latin America has produced organizations forever. And we failed to integrate, and we failed to work together. So what is needed? Pragmatism could be one of the solutions, as you were mentioning. But I don't know, what is needed? Because we were talking about integration before.
I think we should also look at the geopolitical aspect. And while Latin America, and this I feel the same, as a Minister of Foreign Affairs sometimes, I feel that we lack solidarity, empathy, and cooperation between our own countries. We are so similar, but part of the problem, if I start thinking about geography, could be that Latin American countries, they act like different islands, sometimes differentiated by geographic, some accidentes, we call it geographic accidents, or geographic imperatives, such as the Amazonas, probably, we have the Andes and the Caribbean, right? Okay, that divides a little bit, maybe that's the reason why it has been so difficult to integrate. But my point when we talk about multilateral cooperation is that I feel a multilateral organization or a multilateral group or coordination group needs to be relevant. And how a multilateral organization or cooperation or the integration can be relevant. You need to have common values or common goals. You need to have a passion. You need to have a goal that you can really that motivates you. You need motivation to work towards that goal. Sometimes what we have is an infrastructure that doesn't have a goal where all the member countries are motivated to work towards, right? And the other thing that I believe affects that integration is that we create institutions where experts doing that. But the institution it's above the goal. And it should not be like that. The goal should always remain the principal objective, and the infrastructure should not be put above the goal. Because then you lose the passion to collaborate. If we have a common goal here, we have realized that we are a very unequal continent, right? Maybe the goal should be working towards that. And the other thing that I have noticed is that if you want a coordination group, because now I don't want to call it international organization because sometimes you have the example of coordination groups that work better than those that have a huge infrastructure and a huge structure, like the OAS. I can give you many examples, like the Contadora group that worked during the 80s. In fact, Contadora is an island in Panama. That group got together to try to solve the conflicts that Central American countries were having, right? So we evolved into Grupo Rio Group, and then we evolved into CELAC. So we have been evolving, we have been changing goals and motivations. So this is what I think we need. We need to imprint and we need to put energy into our organization, and we need to be more solider. And I want to just highlight that when you talk about diversity, Panama is interesting because Panama has it all. Panama has been historically South American. We were obsessed with Simón Bolívar. So we follow Bolívar wherever he was going, and we decided we will go to the Great Colombia and we will be part of the Bolívar dream. But then geographically, we are completely Central America. You can see that. When the Darien jungle ends, you see that this is Central America ending. And then we are culturally Caribbeans. So you see that we are a connection within the continent. And therefore, we love to portray ourselves and to show ourselves to other countries outside the continent as the one that can bring everyone together. And this has been the role of my country for many, many years. And I hope we can continue imprinting that dialogue, motivation, and energy into every organization that we create in the continent.
Thank you very much. You mentioned that we need to find a common thread. And perhaps that thread, although might be politically more appealing to talk about civil and political rights, but it's kind of difficult to sell during an election. I mean, democracy sounds nice to be defended, but I wonder how can we do that if we have political parties who are not very well regarded and respected, not only in Latin America, throughout the world. But perhaps talking about trade and improving the quality of life, reducing inequalities, might be a much better thread. That means talking about economical, social rights. So what would be the opinion, Mónica Bolaños, related to this, particularly when our cycles, government cycles, are too short? For example, Guatemala is 4 years. So you have 4 years to change.
No re-election.
Excuse me?
And no re-election.
And no re-election. So you have 4 years to change everything. So how can we do that? How can we achieve those challenges? How can we interact among our countries in order for not to lose the track that is working in certain countries and that has to be maintained?
Yes, thank you. First of all, I would like to completely agree with the minister. Our region, unfortunately, had a lack of solidarity, cooperation, and empathy. I think this is completely true, and it is really necessary, urgent, to commit to an integration that also improves the living conditions of its inhabitants and prevents their migration, as I mentioned in the first intervention. And economic integration is very important. in Central America. We also have the Central American Integration System, SICA, that of course is facing some challenges, very serious challenges, but we still believe that integration is the answer. And in a country as Guatemala, like that, as you said, as you pointed out, we only have 4 years, and everything changes every 4 years, and even if the same ideological party wins, it's always a change. And aside from that, we count with we have the Central American Economic Integration System, that is CIECA, and also is working on that issue. Maybe also is not very known, CIECA, to everybody. They have a website. That's true. So you can go into the website, but it's really important to that the region have the ability to, as a region that can confront problems together and continues to be one of the main challenges that we have. And individual countries have some of us have small economies, but if we are seeing as a whole. There will be a much greater room for negotiations and to help facing common problems, such as, for example, the adaptation of climate change. That is really important. Security for our countries, and attracting foreign direct investment. I think if each of us, we are really having a priority and efforts to attract foreign investment, and some countries have a lot of success more than others, but I think together as a region we can find more better ways, and economic integration is very important, and I think it's easier to achieve and to get everybody together in the same table, but we'll have some challenges. We have our agreements with other regions. For example, Central America have these agreements with the European Union, and we also with, and then, of course, there's always some interests that are not the interests of all of us, and they're always the way to go alone. But I think we have a chance. A big chance and a big opportunity in economic integration, and not only in Central America, but integration with the rest of the countries. I served in Ecuador before I became minister, and I was really following all the process of all this very successful process of my colleagues as Mercosur, as Alianza del Pacífico, and the rest, and how to become observers were one of our main objectives. And I think we must help each other and to achieve better results for our regions, because this is if the regions succeed, I think it's maybe more opportunity for development, more opportunity to attract investment, foreign investment that really counts. So I think we should apostar, I don't know how to say it in English, to bet in the economic integration. I think this is the way to start, because political integration is another level, and I think it's more. They have more challenges, but I think we must, and I think we can't work on economic integration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Francisco Jose, Colombia is a country very well regarded because of its quality of education, and perhaps is, with Chile and Argentina, the 3 countries that have the best systems of education. That really makes a big difference if we want to talk about future, a prosperous future. I would say perhaps Uruguay also is, so that I don't have a problem with the ambassador here. So anyway, but then Colombia is also part of the Alianza del Pacífico. What difference has made improving the quality of education in terms of improving or increasing chances of economic integration, increasing trade, and then eventually improving the quality of life of peoples? Because this is, again, one of those topics in which Latin America lags behind all other continents. We just saw the OECD results of the PISA test, and we are not doing very well. So, and then we are talking about artificial intelligence. There are several panels in this meeting talking about artificial intelligence or talking about nearshoring and all these highly developed technologies, but we haven't solved the basics in education. So it would be possible to talk about kind of an educational integration in Latin America, just to come up with the best practices and try to have a better system like the Asian countries are doing? I don't know.
Thank you, Sergio, for the question. Well, in that top list, you have to mention Mexico as well, of course. I was always wanted to go to El Colegio in Mexico to study part. Well, yeah, that's a big challenge for the region, for the whole world, but this time for Latin America. I'm going to mention a little anecdote. A few weeks ago, I had to talk to the college graduation of some people in the university, and they asked me to talk about the future. I told them, well, you have spent 5 years of your life learning a lot of things, but I have bad news for you. Nothing what you learn is going to be useful for you. You have to think in the future in a different way. You're probably going to change occupation several times in the future, because what you learn today probably is going to be useful tomorrow. You have not only to train, but retrain again and again. Because of you just mentioned, only one mentioned the biggest challenge is probably artificial intelligence. But in general, because you have to readapt to a world that is building up. So that's a big challenge. So as a region, we probably need to start working together on that. In what way we're going to insert in the new economy, in the new ways that the business are going to be done, the way we do business in government. We have to see the future, what is coming our way, to see how we adapt. So probably resilience and adaptation will be two keywords in the future, and the education have to prepare people for that. We are in diplomacy, probably learn about a lot about international law and international relations, but in the future we need to have a new set of skills to be able to compete and to survive in this world that is emerging, that we don't know yet how it's going to be like.
Yeah, indeed, we live in a world with lots of uncertainties, lots of changes, but those changes really impact the whole humankind and everywhere. And so I think one of those challenges you mentioned is Latin America needs to be better prepared into this, and perhaps selecting few topics, very complex, of course, but few could be a big difference. I don't know if anyone would like to talk about the challenge that we face in immigration. Of course, Guatemala has been a source for migrants. Also now is a country where migrants pass through on the way to Mexico and to the United States, and so it's a transit state. And we used to have a regional conference on immigration that used to meet often in Panama and many other places. I don't know if that still is still working, and because immigration is not only now between or among Latin American countries. We see people coming from Ukraine at the border of the States. We see people coming from different countries in Africa that pass through typically Ecuador and countries in South America, and they come up all the way to Mexico and then eventually to the United States. And it's really becoming a very severe problem, not only for the families themselves, but even from the countries, the transit countries like Guatemala and Mexico. And of course, there is a right for the people to migrate, but the main causes need to be studied and eventually solved. And you were mentioning that investment is critical, but then we also have security, and then which one is first? And I mean, it's how to tackle that. It's a very complex system. So is there some comment that you want to make on this? Because it's a critical issue of course, in Latin America and other countries, in other regions. Okay.
Thank you. Well, look, we're facing the same challenge. We have our own vision, probably, and maybe that's part of the problem. I will start talking about that, and I'll talk about Panama. We are a 4.5 million country, and last year, 500,000 people crossed the Darien Gap. The Darien jungle is a very hostile jungle. It's the only place in the Americas where the Pan American road that connects every country breaks. So imagine the road that connects the whole continent breaks in one special place called Darien jungle, and it's due to geography again. Now, how do we solve this? It's a very complex situation because we don't only have Latin Americans crossing the Darien Gap. Very recently, we have received different kind of nationalities, Asians, Middle East, many places. I don't want to point at one because, but we receive all kind of nationalities. And when the way Panama relates to those migrants is completely different from the way any other country in the continent relate to those migrants, because when we receive them, they are coming from a very hostile travel. Around 7 to 12 days of hardships, about 7 to 12 days of maybe some of them have been abused. Many things happen there. So when they come to my country, what we do is that we offer first help, first aid, health. Sometimes we need to provide them clothes. We give them shelter and food. And then they transit to the north, right, to Costa Rica, and we have very good coordination, and then they go to the north, Guatemala, and then Mexico. But what I see, and that makes us struggle a bit, is that there are too many different jurisdictions, again, working as islands, trying to solve the problem under their own perspective of what migration is. Because for Panamanians, migration is a matter of humanitarian, it has a humanitarian aspect, but it has a security aspect. And we see it that way. We are not going to settle on a different perspective. And yes, migration needs to, when you think about stopping or reducing or managing migration, you need to look at the root cause, definitely. But what do I do now? I have to solve the issue now. And the root cause has to be solved maybe in 5-10 years. But how do I solve it now? So this is our main challenge. We're a very small country. We have our own set of challenges, and we are already dealing with this. We have the collaboration of the United States, obviously, is the main actor, and also Canada, and we are constantly talking to our brothers from Costa Rica and from Colombia. This is very important. We keep talking, we keep collaborating, and we try always to improve. But probably what we need to do better, and this is my advice, is to coordinate, talk more, and share more information. That could help us. For us, and with this I'm going to conclude, when you invite people to your house and you offer them food, you need to know how many people are coming so you can provide them what they need, right? So that's the only thing we request. We hope we can get more information to understand how many people we need to help.
Yeah, you mentioned two key words. The first one is to manage migration. It's not to be solved, but to manage. And I think this is something that I think Latin American countries have achieved with the United States, that they have learned that they cannot solve the migration crisis. They can manage, but not to be solved. And this is a very important step. And the second is that, of course, we need to work with the pull factors, who in this case are the US and Canada, as you mentioned. And I don't know if you want, Monica, please.
Thank you very much. And yeah, sharing of information and more collaboration, I think, is needed. And And for example, I can share with you that 2 days ago, the ministers of Mexico, the US, and Guatemala met in Washington in order to start this conversation. And this is important, and it's not just a group of countries, very, very important countries, because we are like the cuello de botella. Also, yeah, so the short point of from Central America to Mexico and to the United States, and I think this is a new approach, and this is good. We don't know what is going to happen in November. I think everybody's worried about that, all the region, but we need to take this opportunity to advance in very important issues and to continue discussion, because of course they met only one morning. They're not going to resolve everything, but I think the messages, the main messages were delivered, the sharing of information, the need of more also aside from the root causes, right, that I totally share with the minister. I think we need to know what to do right now, with which cooperation we count, and also the roles of the international organizations, not only the states. The states, of course, have the main responsibility of the manage the migration problems, but also the help of the international organizations like ACNUR, like International Migration Organization, and others can help at the moment in order to provide the migrants with these basic services, and decent and services for all of them. And follow up of that meeting in Washington, Guatemala committed to organize the follow-up of the meeting of the Declaration of Los Angeles, Declaración de Los Angeles, and it will be held in April in Guatemala. And I think what's discussed is that we have all the issues already, so we really not all the countries to come at the highest level, ministerial level, right, but at the highest level, in order to start really delivering on some important answers and some important solutions to this problem. I think this is a great opportunity to do that. We have the support of the US, as the minister said, so we have to take advantage before November in order to advance on this. And I cannot be more specific on this issue, but I think sharing of information and more coordination is key. And I think that's 2 points that maybe can, if you hear them, it's just like obvious, but not sometimes it's not the same, the case. So I think we are in a good way to resolve it and to have these discussions among everybody. That's a problem that most of the regions have, and I think we can be an example of that in order to bring solutions and to bring it to the table, so other regions also can learn from the best practices that we have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You were mentioning best practices. I think that Turkey has very interesting practices with Germany, and I think it would be very interesting to have some collaboration and learning from each other what Turkey did with Germany and with a third country type of agreement, and so that's something that could be learned. One of the issues that concern me about the immigration is the securitization of migration. I don't know, Ambassador, if you want to say something about this.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just to illustrate how tall, how high in the agenda this issue is for our region, then that weekend we're going to meet in Panama, the foreign minister, the foreign minister of Mexico, Guatemala, and Colombia, to talk about it. We're going to visit the Darien Gap precisely, which is becoming a big issue for us regionally. Well, the discussion about migration is all in our regional agenda. Probably the way we are watching it today is different for several reasons. One is the magnitude of what we're seeing. The other way, there are a lot of intervention of criminal organizations in facilitating the traffic of migrants. It's not only the traditional economic migration, people trying to reach the United States or the countries of the north. There are more of that. We are seeing in the Darien Gap more and more people from outside the region. When you go to the Darien, you'll see a lot of Chinese people, Africans, Asian, that are coming coming there to try to cross the arena and go to the United States, facilitated by organizations. It's very organic, very well organized, in a way that is not spontaneous. There is organization behind that. Now, in the case of Colombia, we didn't have a tradition of receiving migrants for a long time. Only like a century ago, we received some migration from the Middle East, particularly in the Caribbean zone. But recently, after 2018, we started receiving a lot of people from a neighboring country. We're receiving in a 3 years period, more or less 3 million people. And other 4 billion people who migrate from this country go through the south to go to Ecuador, Peru, and Chile. So we basically receive in that period 7 million people. 3 million of them stay in Colombia. And we're assimilating them. The people who decided to stay in Colombia, we facilitate their stay. We offer them temporary protected status to stay in Colombia for 10 years. So that kind of migration, we're receiving it with difficulty, but we're receiving it and we're assimilating them. But in the last 2 years, we start to see a different flow. People just not coming to Colombia, don't coming through Colombia to go north. And that's when the big Darien Gap crisis started, because basically it's an issue of numbers. I remember the first time we met with the Panamanian Authority, they told us, well, we can receive like 1,000 people a day, but nowadays we have 3,000 people a day. So all the numbers beyond what we can handle. I understand that, but behind that, there's not only economic or political reason migration, but there is kind of a criminal business associated to the need of the people who wish to migrate. And these are global networks. But that's why I mentioned people coming from outside the continent and getting there. There are people facilitating the transit and try to get to the United States. Well, this year, something probably going to change. There's probably a different government in the United States, a different approach to migration. But what we've seen is different what we've seen before. And we're suffering. Both Panama and Colombia are suffering because we are in the middle of the traffic. The Darien Gap is not only gap, but only we are suffering for those flows. Again, we are willing to receive the people who want to stay in our country, but we don't know yet how we're going to handle the people going through the country and trying to get the other way. That's where we need to collaborate. We need to cooperate. We need to share information to understand how can we handle together what we are facing and address it in an effective way.
Thank you very much. We have 5 more minutes. And so I would like just to finalize perhaps with a comment on, I think there are like 2 big elephants in the room in Latin America. One is, of course, the United States, not only related to migration, but in general, with the Organization of American States and its power, economical power, and so on. And the other one is China. That in many Latin American countries, China has become the most important trade partner. Perhaps not so much in Guatemala, Mexico, we still, because of the geography, but that's not true in the southern part, in Chile, for example. So, and I think geography is very important, and we need to just to be sure where we are and what's our neighborhood, and to make a decision. And geopolitics becomes critical. But I would just, of course, you are officials from three different countries. I don't want to expose you into saying what would you do with the United States and China. But how are you seeing the role of China and the U.S. in your countries? And what would you expect? Of course, it depends on many factors. China has not been growing in the past months as it was growing a couple of years ago. But what would be the role of the U.S., China, vis-a-vis Panama, Guatemala, Colombia, and the other countries? You should start. Yes, please.
Okay, so I would like to be very quick about this because for us, we are the only country also in mainland, in the continent, not the Caribbean, the islands, but in the continent where the U.S. has shared 100 years of history. I mean, they stay 100 years in my country. We share the same land. So our relation towards the U.S. and the way we see the U.S. it's completely different from any other country in the continent. That's a fact. Geography again, right? The Panama Canal was instrumental for the United States to control the Caribbean Sea. That's a fact also. So we do have a very symbiotic relation with the United States, not only culturally, democracy, values, but security-wise also. Now, taking that into consideration, the United States is also our main commercial partner and the main user of the Panama Canal. But the second user is China. And interestingly enough, for me to tell you that trade between the United States and China has given business to the Panama Canal and has benefited the Panama Canal. Again, we are a country that cannot ignore the relevance of the United States, but we are also a country that understands and has always crafted foreign policy considering commerce, trade, and geoeconomics. Those are very important aspects for Panamanians. We are a transit country. We are a country that believes that everyone can do business in Panama. So for us, we can do business with both countries, considering the important and very crucial role that the U.S. play in Panama and Panama for the U.S. security too.
Thank you very much. Monica.
I will be very diplomatic. As the minister said, we also have a symbiotic relation with the United States. I think geographically it's really important for us, and also the U.S. is the main commercial partner of Guatemala. And 4 million Guatemalans live in the United States.
4 million.
And I think it's expected next year to be more. So, for example, in order to also be vigilant of the security and prosperity of our connationals, we really need to have this conversation and these good relations with the United States. As everybody knows, sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's more difficult, but I think they also know that their security, their borders, and also the commercial exchange is very important. So they also have we also have a special place in their foreign policy. And the role of China, I think, for me, is very easy. We have exchange with China, but we are one of the very now small group of countries that have still ties with Taiwan. And I think this is really explains itself that we have this position since a long time ago. We are very aware also of the role of China in the region and the initiatives they have. And also we are, even though China is really strict on the policy of only one China, and we don't share that, we have contacts, I think in the framework of the CELAC. We have also a very important forum with China CELAC, and I think, and also at the security, at the United Nations system, also we had in the past very I don't know how to say it, but very respectful relations, and I think, and the new president, Dr. Arevalo, also in his inauguration speech, he said that he is seeking more commercial ties with China, because we know we already had this, but they are very timid, and if we can manage to have this without changing our policies, political positions, I think we are more willing to do that in order to, of course, also bring some more investment in Guatemala and more commercial exchange with them. Thank you.
Very clear. Ambassador.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, everybody knows that we have a very close relation with the United States. It's our main trade partner, investment, have a lot of cooperation on security, are very close and strategic partners that we recognize each other as such. Last year, President Petro visited China in October. We agreed to become strategic partners. I'm working on that. China became the second trade partner for Colombia in the last 5 years. We think we can keep a good relation without the need to go too deep in that. Of the major Latin American countries, along with Mexico and Brazil, we haven't entered the Belt and Road Initiative. We are considering them, but we're not in a rush to be there. We are negotiating the memorandum of understanding without any rush. So we think we can keep distance or equal distance with these major countries. Besides that, we are starting negotiating an association agreement with the European Union. So we believe that we can keep strategic relations, the major actors in the international system, without a problem. Now, we see a lot of presence of China in Latin America, particularly in the infrastructure and mining sectors. And there are opportunities there. They have very good in technology. We are trying to bring part of that technology, for example, for the energy transition. We can work together, but without a conflict with any of other major partners we already have. We think we can build a very constructive relation with them without a problem.
Thank you very much. I think we are, what does that mean, 5 minutes, or we are okay? Oh, okay. I think we are at the end. Just perhaps a final comment. In Mexico, of course, for us, our main trading partner is the U.S., and we are the main trading partner to the U.S., more than China. Since I'm not a diplomat, I can say that for me, China is a competitor, and we need to treat China as a competitor. Recently, we have new 15 brands of cars in Mexico, 15, and they are taking the share of 10% of the market, and they plan to expand to 15%. And the U.S. manufacturers, General Motors, Ford, they are scared because it's difficult to compete in some of these cases. So I think this is something that we need to pay attention to. In the case of Mexico, at least to me, it's very clear we are neighbors to the U.S., and our main ally has to be the U.S. Of course, we need to have good relations with China and open ties and things, which might be different from the countries far away in South America, but that's a different story. But anyway, so I think it's time to finish. I just want to thank our speakers, our panelists, for a great discussion. I just please allow me to thank them with you for this interesting discussion. And thank you very much to the Turkish government for allowing us to talk about Latin America with Turkey, with Turkey. And we hope that next year we will have with another moderator, but we have another session. Thank you very much. Thank you.